A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, Buckeye Nation, and welcome to the last episode of 2023 here on the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined this evening by Mr. Nick Leisure. How you doing tonight, my man?
Doing well, man. Got our first substantial bit of snow today, so that's kind of sad, but at least it's right around the corner from Christmas time, so they waited as long as it could, and then I was like, okay, it's time to snow now. But other than that, doing pretty well.
Hey, yeah. I mean, I will say, like, when it comes to snow, I always want it around Christmas. I'm not really a fan otherwise, but if I can get it, the one bummer I will say about it, it looks like we're not actually going to have snow on Christmas Day, so that's a little depressing.
Dude, it's gonna be 50 degrees and sunny.
I'm sad. That makes it makes me sad for sure.
I agree.
There is a lot that we are going to talk about tonight. But as always, guys, if you are joining us on YouTube, drop us a like on the video. Really helps that channel grow, and subscribe if you're brand new to Network 216, as we are on the push for 3,000 subscribers. The benefits to subscribing: you get daily Cleveland sports content and, of course, Ohio State football content. But also you're entered in for exclusive giveaways available only to YouTube subscribers. And, of course, there are going to be many opportunities that come in 2024 for you to be a part of. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, completely free. If you are joining us over on Twitter, which you guys can now be doing, drop any comments, questions you guys have. We'll get to as many as we can, but we really appreciate that support. And as always, the Scarlet and Gray Podcast and Network 216 is proud to be a partner of Homage Athletic Apparel. Make sure you go to homage.com right now if you haven't already gotten a Christmas gift. One, you've waited way too late. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
But also, if you need a gift card for someone a couple of days late, there's no better place you'll be able to go than homage.com. They have everything you're looking for as far as vintage athletic apparel. And there's going to be lots of sales, not only right before Christmas, but right after Christmas. So make sure you take advantage of it. That's homage.com. And Nick, we're going to start off tonight. There's a lot we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some recruiting updates because early signing day is on Thursday. So a lot's going to happen there. Updates from the transfer portal. There's not much, just some depressing things out there. And, of course, at the very end, preview the Cotton Bowl. But when it comes to recruiting, one good piece of news we got today is that Ohio State is expecting to hold on to number one overall recruit Jeremiah Smith and defensive end Edric Houston. What are your thoughts on that? I know we were over the weekend. There was a lot of smoke out there that Houston was going to flip with him visiting Clemson and Alabama over the weekend, which came completely out of the blue. But how are you feeling, at least knowing that the Buckeyes are going to be able to lock in those two guys, both two of the 3 5-stars that they have in the class?
I mean, obviously it's great news with all the constant fluidity that is college football now. You never know what these kids are going to do. So, I mean, I know we were really nervous there about Jeremiah Smith for a while because all the smoke and mirrors with the in-home visit from Miami, and just with Kyle McCord entering the portal and stuff like that. Things just seemed really we just didn't really know what was going to happen. So it's great to hear that he's pretty much locked in. So him and Aaron Noland are going to be coming in together, which will be a fun duo to watch in the future. And then Houston on the edge. I mean, that's just massive also. I mean, whenever you can get a top-tier D lineman, no matter, I mean, if it's interior or exterior, it's always props and helps to the D line. So Larry Johnson able to hold on to this one.
Yeah, it's great. Like, don't get me wrong. It's very good that they were able to pull this off. I think the big thing for me is just, it feels like what's been happening the last couple of years under Ryan Day. And I know NIL plays a factor. I get all that. But they are struggling more and more with holding on to their class. Like, it's like when they get to the finish, it's a limp. I mean, you're going to have – the reality is we're going to get to in a second. There are going to be probably 3 or 4 guys from this class that are going to flip on signing day, unfortunately. I'd say that's the biggest thing for me. Is that starting to worry you at all? The last couple of years, the Buckeyes have had issues closing on their class. Like, we're ranked number 2 right now, but given what is probably going to transpire, this class could be 4 or 5, maybe even out of the top 5 before the end of the day on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of worry me, because if this is a reoccurring trend, it's either and I know we've talked off air a lot about how Ohio State lacks in NIL, and you would think with how, I mean, when you think Ohio State, I mean, that's college football, dude. Like, college football, it's Ohio State, Bama, Michigan, it's all these top tier programs, and for us to be lacking in that NIL category, and it's obviously it's causing us to lose out on top tier talent. It's either we gotta figure it out or we're gonna get left behind really quickly, especially with the new additions to the Big Ten coming into the conference next year. Competition is just gonna get better and better every season. So we really gotta figure it out here in the next couple of years, or else I'm sure there's gonna be some changes happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's the biggest thing that worries me. I love Larry Johnson. He's been one of the greatest D-line coaches in college football history. At the same time, and Tony Alford, he's been a great running back coach for a while, a lot of history at Ohio State. But at some point, you have to wonder if these guys can't adapt to the reality that is college football recruiting now. That's the big question. And I think we're going to find that out here. But real quick, just to go over some of the highlights here from the recruiting class. Jeremiah Smith, Mylan Graham, those are your 2 top recruits, both 5-star wide receivers. Edric Houston, that's big, 5-star defensive end recruit. Aaron Scott, 5-star corner. It says he's 4 on some sites. He's been upgraded to 5 on others. Keeping him, that's an Ohio kid. Aaron Nolan is going to be a 4-star recruit. Again, he's 5 on some. The big one is Jeremiah McClellan, a 4-star wide receiver. This is big because it looks like that Oregon is trying to flip McClellan, which would take him out of this class. The thing that would be interesting about that is normally Ohio State ends up with 3 high-profile recruits from the wide receiver position. So that could potentially be pretty significant. And then just some of the others to round it out here. You got James Peoples, 4-star running back. Garrett Stover, 4-star safety / linebacker, another Ohio kid. Bryce West, another Ohio kid. They have hit the recruiting trail hard for Ohio kids, which you like to see.
Yes.
What you don't like to see is Jordan Lyle is expected to flip from Ohio State to Miami after being committed for months to the Buckeyes.
For a while.
Yeah, he's been committed here for a very long time. So that's really big. But I think the big thing here is keeping Jeremiah Smith is, at the end of the day, the most important thing. I mean, he is when I'm talking not only number 1 recruit, some sites have him as 2, but I think he's 1. He is Ohio State's third time highest recruit at this point. You have Quinn Ewers at number 1, and he does count because Quinn Ewers was a Buckeye.
Yeah.
Terrell Pryor's number 2, Jeremiah Smith number 3. So you're getting an amazing talent right there, which would be absolutely huge for the Buckeyes. And then someone said it's about time. The Fire Show one says it's about time Ohio State flips a 5-star for a change. And I'd love to see it. Truly, I'd love to see us pull a Nick Saban and flip some of these guys on signing day. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But overall, if this class does hold the majority of it, what are your thoughts on that overall class? I mean, right now you're talking number 2. Like I've said before, that's probably going to go down more than likely, just because, again, you're losing some high-profile recruits. I mean, that's just the reality. Like, Lyle's a 4-star. McClellan in some is a 5 to a 4-star.
Right.
But if you can hold Houston, Jeremiah Smith, and pretty much the rest of that class, it looks like the Buckeyes were an update. They're not going to be able to get Coy Parrish, who we thought we were going to be able to get from Minnesota. that one's not really a bummer, but you were hoping to be able to add another safety to this class.
Yeah.
And Carlton Jones ended up going to USC. That one kind of hurts.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one kind of hurts a little bit.
Considering he was crystal ball to the Buckeyes, and again, that brings up my Larry Johnson problem, because that seems to be a trend I'm noticing. But if the Buckeyes can keep that class intact for the most part, how would you rate that class out of 10?
I mean, I feel like it's a lot of skill positions. Like it's not a lot of offensive linemen. I mean, obviously we have a couple defensive linemen coming in, but it's a lot of receivers, running backs, some corners, safeties. So, I mean, it's a lot of skill guys. So, I mean, on that basis, it's a really good class. I mean, especially with the 2 5-star receivers, if we're able to hold on to them both. I mean, that's obviously massive to add to an already stacked receiver room. I mean, we still don't even know if Emeka Egbuka is going to declare this year, so he's still kind of in limbo. And Marvin's still in limbo also, technically, but I doubt it. But, I mean, it's a good class overall. I really like the Stover pickup. Watching him play, I know he's a 4-star, but, I mean, that dude plays all over the field, so it's going to be really interesting to see how the Buckeyes utilize him in his career at Ohio State. But, yeah, overall, it's a really solid class, I think. Just I would love to be able to snag a couple maybe 5-star offensive linemen for once. That'd be cool. But it just doesn't really seem like that is one of our big focuses as Ohio State. They don't really ever go after the big name talent offensive linemen, it seems like, anymore. But, you take what you can get. Number 2 overall class. If we're able to stay in the top 5, I think it's pretty possible. But overall, yeah, I'd give it probably about an 8 out of 10 for me. Just really good skill guys, but obviously you could always get some more beef inside.
I think for me, I'm going to give it an 8 as well. One thing I like, I really like the fact that they kept so many kids from Ohio. I mean, you got the Armstrong twins who are going to come in and probably be a factor on the offensive line immediately, which is really good to see. Outside of that, Bryce West, Aaron Scott Jr., that's going to be an amazing cornerback duo. You kept also Demarion Witten, which is huge at tight end. I mean, that dude looks like he's going to be a stud.
Yeah.
You kept Sam Williams-Dixon, another Ohio kid. I think the big thing you got to start doing is really recruiting Ohio harder.
Yeah.
And I will give the staff credit for doing that because that just needed to be done. They have to understand what this rivalry means with Michigan, and I think this will only help that a little bit. So and that's really good to see.
With Ohio State losing that running back potentially to Miami, Sam Williams-Dixon, I mean, he technically, I mean, I know he's set to graduate from Pickerington North, but he actually went to West Holmes, which is a small town in Millersburg. I mean, so we're both familiar with them because we played against them in high school, but I got to see him in person a couple times, and the kid's electric with the football in his hands. So, I mean, he could look to make an impact probably pretty early with how many running backs we're losing. And, as of right now, we only have Travion and Dallin. Those are the only 2 scholarship running backs on the roster at Ohio State at the moment. So, there's always room for those guys to come in and make an impact early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now we're going to move on to the transfer portal. There's not a lot to discuss here, but right now, Ohio State's in a situation where it seems like I don't really know what I saw someone say that Ohio State didn't really sign anyone from the portal until after January, after their bowl. But keep in mind, Ohio State was in the college football playoff last year, so it wouldn't have made any sense to go after anybody in the portal.
Yeah.
You're now in a position where you have openings on your roster, okay? Now, I get it. Kyle McCord, that quarterback is big, but looks like they're going to roll with the room they got for now. Julian Fleming, it's not a huge loss, but at the same time, you've lost almost the second highest amount of players to the portal, and you have yet to add anybody. And this class right now, it's not a huge class for Ohio State recruiting-wise. They canceled the Trey Moore visit, which, again, I was not a fan that they did that.
Yeah.
They have done that, it looks like. They've had some guys on visit. Kamari Ramsey's a big one. Elam's or at linebacker from Cal, they've had him in for a visit. Is it starting to worry you a little bit that the Buckeyes seem very inactive in the transfer portal? The only reason it does for me, and then I'll let you continue, This is where college football is heading.
Yeah.
And Ohio State, to me, is getting left behind.
Yeah.
You have a staff that is afraid right now of offending people. Truly. Yeah. They rather roll with and that's fine if you want to roll with young guys, but that means your job is on the line for a lot of people, for a lot of players that are very inexperienced coming in next year, because that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Ohio State's lack of activity in the transfer portal?
I mean, I think more than anything, it's more frustrating. I mean, I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm necessarily like really nervous or worried. I'm more just frustrated that these other programs that are nowhere near the level of Ohio State, and they're making all these splashes in the portal. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, so what are the Buckeyes doing that, I mean, what aren't they doing that all these other schools are doing? Like a prime example to me, and I mean, I say this because I kind of have a stake in this, is also, I mean, Kentucky, dude, they're making moves. Like they got a 5-star quarterback from Georgia. They got a couple receivers coming in. I mean, they got Chip Trainum from the Buckeyes. Like, I mean, they're making some moves and they're really trying to improve their roster. And then you see Ohio State, and you could argue Georgia's in the same position right now. They're losing a lot of guys also. But I think it's just more, I don't know. I just wish they were a little bit more active earlier, because like you said, last year we were getting ready for a college football playoff. So nobody was declaring that they were going into the portal, really. Everyone was kind of sticking around to see, kind of play it out. But now we're not in that position now. Like, this is the Cotton Bowl. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great to play in a bowl game. Missouri's going to be a tough opponent. We'll get to that later on. But, I mean, you still have to look. I mean, I don't want you to say look ahead through Missouri, but it's like you got to get ready for next season and kind of figure out who you're going to have come January when everyone comes back to campus and you're ready to get after it for the spring. And right now, they're just – I'm very just underwhelmed, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just not fully confident that what we have on the roster is good enough to win a national title next year.
I agree. No, I completely agree with that. And the way I've said this for a while, your goal is to add as much talent as possible, okay? Mm-hmm. You just being Ohio State and expecting people are going to come – dude, get your NIL money up. You got the richest donors out there, okay? Let's just say that right now. You do. You got money, all right? I know there's a rumor that Ohio State doesn't have – I find that impossible to believe, truly, as one of the richest programs in college football.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Like, on top of this, Oregon's about to add their second quarterback from this portal because they are now predicted to land Dante Moore, former 5-star quarterback, to add with Dillon Gabriel. So,
of course, why not?
And I'm not even saying go out of quarterback. Like, that's a whole other conversation. I'm saying, look at what Ole Miss is doing. Ole Miss has got the top receiver. They're bringing in the top overall player in the transfer portal, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, who Ohio State could absolutely use. He's a sophomore. Why? And it's like you have these schools out there. Ole Miss stands out. Kentucky stands out. Oregon stands out. Texas just added the top overall defensive back from Clemson. You need, and again, defensive back's not a need for, but my point being, add talent, okay? Yeah. If these kids can't handle that, then good. You can go, okay? It sucks to lose guys like that. You need guys that are going to compete for your job. You need guys you need as many highly rated players competing against each other as possible, and let the best man win. Well, and right now, they're afraid of hurting these kids' feelings.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, if I'm Ryan Day, I mean, you got to kind of think this is his last shot, because, I mean, Gene Smith isn't going to be here to defend him next year. I mean, Gene Smith has had his back the whole time, but with him retiring and a new athletic director coming in next season, I mean, this is Ryan Day's audition to this athletic director that he has what it takes to lead this football program to a national championship again. And like you've always said, I mean, if you're relying on guys that don't have any, I mean, the roster's not going to have a lot of experience next year at almost every level. So it's like, to rely on a bunch of young guys that haven't played in a lot of games it's a big roll of the dice for Ryan Day. And I mean, it sucks that it might come to that, but you know what? At the end of the day, Ohio State's in it to win national championships, not to play in the Cotton Bowl.
Exactly. And Jermaine, this is where we're at. Kids don't want to compete. 100% facts. That's where we're at. It's a bad trend that we're heading down, but it is the reality. Now, we got 10 minutes left, man, and there is a game to be played.
Yeah.
And we actually have something to look forward to because we're going to see Devin Brown actually start a football game.
Maybe. He declared himself, though. We might not see it.
Dude, that's actually true. That I'm not gonna lie, that would kind of be hilarious. If
gosh, that would be good.
Oh my goodness! But the Buckeyes are going to take on Missouri. It'll be the first meeting between the two schools, which is pretty remarkable. Missouri went 10-2 this year. They lost to LSU. They lost to Georgia by 9. They destroyed Tennessee. Beat Kansas State. I mean, they have some pretty decent wins on their schedule. Missouri is led by the two players they are led by on the offensive side. Brady Cook, quarterback, had 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,100 yards. Cody Schrader, who is absolutely one of the most underrated backs in the country. He had nearly 1,500 yards, 6 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. And then at receiver, one of the most underrated receiving cores in college football, Luther Burden III, Theo Weiss Jr., and Mookie Cooper, who Buckeye fans should recognize that name because he transferred to Missouri. But overall, what are your thoughts on this Missouri Tigers team? I mean, this is a team that, again, I think they overachieved a lot compared to what people were expecting from them. They're, like I said, they're loaded at wide receiver. I mean, you could make the argument they have a top 5 receiving core in college football. And then you add in Schrader at running back, who is basically a Swiss Army knife with what he does for them.
That's I was just about to get into that. I mean, I got to watch him a couple times, and I mean, the kid's electric. I mean, even in his last game, I can just read his stat line. This is just rushing the ball. He had 27 carries, 217 yards, and a touchdown. But I mean, he's averaging over 120 yards on the ground a game. He ran for almost 1,500 yards this season. I mean, he's just a complete stud. And then Brady Cook, also a pretty good runner. I mean, he also ran for 8 touchdowns himself this season. So not only did he throw for 20, he ran for 8. So, I mean, this is a Missouri team that, I mean, I think with the depleted Ohio State roster, it could be a tough matchup for the Buckeyes. I mean, we don't really know what we have in Devin Brown or Lincoln Kienholz for that matter. So we don't know. I mean, it's going to be a new quarterback. So, I mean, they only have a month to get ready and try to get that locker room to rally around whichever quarterback they decide to play. But, I mean, Missouri's a tough team. I think it'll be a fun game to watch, though, especially for all the Buckeye fans that just kind of want to know what we have at quarterback.
Yeah, and, again, Missouri, like I said, Missouri is not – I don't think this is going to be a blowout for Ohio State. Missouri is a solid team. Luther Burden is as good as it comes at wide receiver. Theo Weiss is incredibly underrated. Buckeye secondary is going to have their hands full. We already got reports Denzel Burke will be playing. We got report pretty much everyone sounds like he's going to be playing. We don't know about Harry. Huh?
Is Ransom going to play?
I don't know if we know that.
Yeah, I haven't heard for sure about him yet.
Yeah, we're not sure. I know we're not sure on that one yet. And then as far as the rest of it, I mean, we're not sure on Travion, which has been – that whole thing's been really weird. We haven't heard a single thing on Travion. Marvin Harrison Jr. we don't know about. Emeka Buka is going to play. But, I mean, this is a Missouri team, dude. They fight. I mean, this is a team that I think they're incredibly underrated. I do. Brady Cook can run a little bit. He's not the – Winston Hush. Okay. Oh, man. But anyway, Missouri's very underrated, and I think their quarterback has a little bit more ability. Brady Cook is a solid quarterback. Mm-hmm. They're going to be up for this game. How do you think the Buckeyes are going to handle this game? Again, you're not in the college football playoff, and that's your fault. No one to blame but yourselves. How do you expect Ohio State to react in this situation, not being in an elite bowl game?
I mean, I still hope that they come out ready to play. I know Jack Sawyer, he had a good tidbit when he talked to media. I think it was last week. I mean, he said they're going to be ready to play, and that, I mean, it's still a bowl game. Like, they still want to go out there and perform at the highest level. So hopefully they come out pretty fired up, and I mean, they come out and hopefully they want to send a message to, like, hey, we're still here. Like, yeah, we're not in the Final Four, but it's like we're still a team that's going to be reckoned with in the future, I would hope, but I don't know, man. I just from reports that I'm hearing, and I mean, Ryan Day's been super underwhelming in his press conferences lately, and I don't.
Those press conferences are just,
dude, they're brutal.
There's no energy. There's nothing, dude.
It's like, I mean, I understand, like, this isn't where they want to be. I get it. But as the head coach of the football program, like, you cannot send that message to your kids, like, and not bring that energy. So hopefully the kids figure it out and they're ready to come out and play with some fire, and, hopefully just kind of send a message to Missouri and just kind of take it by the horns and put up a lot of points. But you don't really know until the whistle blows and they start the football game, So, but Missouri definitely not a slouch of an opponent, and the Buckeyes should really be ready to go, because that's the worst. The only thing worse than not being in the playoff is losing your bowl game to a Missouri team that you have no business losing to. But yeah. I mean, Missouri can put up points. They're averaging 34 a game. I mean, I guess we have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest thing. Like, if you somehow, if you lose this game, I'm gonna have a lot of questions. Like, I'm gonna have a lot of questions. Okay, I get it. All right. Part of me is wondering if these guys are even gonna be motivated. They can say whatever they want. Yeah. But then when you get to the field and you realize, oh, we're not in this big of a bowl game.
Yeah.
Like, why should we care?
And I know Buckeye fans, they're going to travel because they always do. I mean, yeah. They get to go play in Dallas, in Jerrytown, So that'll be good. Yeah, that'll be cool for them. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a great atmosphere in that stadium, because I mean, Columbia, Missouri is not that awful of a trip either. So hopefully both teams bring a good student section, and I really hope they come out and play with some fire.
I hope you're right, Fire Show. And I'm here. It wouldn't surprise me though if they blew them out, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they just didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, it can go either way. What are your expectations for Devin? But before we we'll announce what the spread is and if the Buckeyes cover, so on and so forth. What are your expectations for Devin Brown? And assuming, again, he is indeed going to be said it. I'm going to assume he's starting. So let's assume that's going to be the starting quarterback.
Well, I hope he has a little bit more of a playbook than what he had in the regular season this year. I'll just start with that. Yeah. Other than run left, run right, and let me throw a pass to this receiver's ankles. But, I mean, I don't really know what to expect, because, honestly, we haven't really seen a lot of him. I mean, even in the spring, he got hurt. Didn't get to play in the spring game, so we didn't even get to see him in the spring game. We saw him in super limited action in the beginning of the season, and I mean, not a super highly touted recruit. And I mean, hopefully this is this might be his coming out party. He might come out and light it up and take care of the football. But I mean, overall, that's what it needs to come down to. Like Coach Day was saying the whole year, just make the routine plays routine. Just make the easy throws. You don't need to, air it out and think you're playing for the national championship game, but like, just take care of the football, make the easy throws, and I mean, find a way to go win at the end of the day. But I mean, we'll see. He's a little bit bigger than McCord, so I mean, I'm sure they're going to have some design QB runs in there for him. And I wouldn't doubt it if we see Keen Holtz in some design QB plays as well. So I think the playbook is going to be wide open, and they're going to do a lot of fun stuff, I think.
Yeah, I'll say this, and this is not a knock on Devin Brown. My expectations are, they're not high, not low, just they're average. Go out there, win the football game. I'll say this. Right now, you're putting your quarterback room in the hands of Devin Brown, Aaron Nolan, and Lincoln Keenholz, guys with potential that are very unproven. So I'll say this, Devin Brown better be that guy.
Yeah.
He better be that guy. And if he is not, Houston, we have a problem, and I don't know what solves it. So, you know what? Devin, I think he's going to play well.
Yeah.
But for me to feel confident going into 2024, this man better light it up.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. He better go out there, and he better absolutely light it up, because if he doesn't, you're going to hear me on this show, our first episode in 2024, and I am going to push the panic button. I will actually have a panic button here, and I will push it. So that's where I am at. Right now, the Buckeyes, Nick, they are actually 2.5-point underdogs right now. So I think this is an easy question. So the Buckeyes aren't favored. I believe this is only the second time they were not favored against Michigan either.
Yeah.
The Buckeyes aren't favored, but do you think they end up covering the spread, and what's your game prediction?
I sure as hell hope they cover the spread. Gosh, I mean, you can cover the spread and still lose technically. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I do feel like Devin's going to try to open it up a little bit, even though I want him to make the routine plays. I feel like he's going to think, well, this could be my one audition before Aaron Nolan gets here in the spring. So I think he's going to try to go out there and send a message early. It's hard to say, dude. I think the Buckeyes cover. I think they'll end up winning. I think it'll be a little bit high scoring. I'm going to say 38-24 Buckeyes. And then they bring home the Cotton Bowl and end 2023 on a high note.
I like it. Real quick, the Fire just as one last point. All the players are on social media. They hear how everyone is downplaying them. They hear all the talk how Missouri wants to win. They don't disagree with that. Also, appreciate the compliment, my friend. Hope to see you in 2024. Thank you very much. I got the Buckeyes as well. They're going to cover. I think we're going to see the latter, though. I think we're going to see these guys come out on – I think they do have a point to prove that, you know, we're still Ohio State and we can go out there and we can beat anybody. Because I think right now that's a little bit questioned.
Sure.
I think they're going to go out and I think they're going to take it to Missouri. I will say this. You better contain Schrader, because if you don't, you might have a long day ahead of you. And we've seen the Buckeyes struggle against the run this year.
Yeah.
They did better against Michigan, but they wore down. They struggled against Rutgers. Rutgers just ran. Missouri can do that with Schrader. And then on the outside in the secondary, I'm telling you, these receivers from Missouri are going to surprise. For people who have not watched Missouri, you have, and I've seen them a couple times. These receivers can play with anybody in the country.
Absolutely.
Denzel Burke is great. Jordan Hancock has been solid. This is the best receiving core they will see all year. So I'm expecting it to be a good game. I got the Buckeyes. I got them 42-31.
Ooh.
So
a little bit of a shootout there, huh?
Yeah. I think Missouri can score.
Yeah.
That's one thing they're not great on defense, but they can score.
Absolutely.
And I think they will score. I think the Buckeyes pull away late. It'll be very close at halftime.
Fair.
Is there anything else, man? This is the last show of 2023. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I mean, no, not really, dude. Just we'll keep an eye out for signing day. I'm sure we're going to be active on socials, so keep a lookout for all the early signing day information and news. But I mean, other than that, Buckeye hoops, big win over UCLA over the weekend. So good to see them. I think they improved to 9-2. So while there's no Buckeye football to watch right now, Buckeye hoops still very, very prominent. They got a good squad over there this year, so go check them out if you haven't yet.
Absolutely. Love it, man. Well, thank you to everyone that's tuned in to the Scarlet and Gray podcast for 2023. Again, there will be no shows the next couple of weeks due to Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's. So this is the last show for 2023. We will be back for 2024, and we will recap the Cotton Bowl. So you want to make sure you don't miss it. Obviously, we'll put an announcement closer when the show comes out, but be sure to follow the show at the SG_podcast. We're going to have signing day updates, transfer portal updates all throughout the year, declarations for anyone that goes to the NFL. Make sure you don't miss any of it. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. We'll talk to you guys all again in 2024. And as always, go Buckeyes.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
And a happy New Year.